So we are directly starting with our valedictory session. For last 2 days, we are listening to the different scholars, and it is really heartening to see how the Ramakatha travels and becomes one with the region, one with the culture, and one with the people, and also how it reflects into their art, into their culture, and into their daily practices. So in the field of philosophy, as we always say, the one manifested in many ways. I think the same is true with the Ramakatha also. The one Ramakatha manifests in so many different ways. So as we are heading towards the close of this 3-day international conference, we are now really eager to listen to the valedictory address. We are very pleased to welcome the eminent scholar in the field of Sanskrit and Buddhist studies, Professor Shrikant Bahulkar, with us to deliver the valedictory address. He was actually going to join us in offline mode. He was going to be present over here, but due to some prior urgent commitments, he has joined in the online mode. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
So I take this opportunity to introduce Professor Shrikant Bahulkar. Bahulkar sir has been our guide and mentor for many years, and he has always supported us, encouraged us in all the endeavors that we have taken up. So thank you so much, Bahulkar sir.
My pleasure.
Bahulkar sir is currently a senior fellow at the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies of Oxford University, UK. He was the ICSSR chair for Indian Studies at the Tel Aviv University, Israel. He was appointed member on the International Advisory Board of Tibetan Buddhist Resource Center, USA. Vedic studies, Buddhist studies, Ayurveda, classical Sanskrit literature are main areas of his research interest. For his PhD, he worked on healing practices in the Atharva Veda and later carried out field work searching for the living tradition of Atharva Veda and manuscripts of Atharva Vedic texts. He has written and edited 12 books so far and has also worked as visiting professor at many reputed universities. He did his postgraduate research at the Nagoya University, Japan, and also learned Tibetan and Japanese languages as well as Buddhist tantric work at that particular time. For his outstanding contribution to Vedic and Sanskrit studies, he has been honored with prestigious awards such as Nana Saheb Peshwe Puraskar of Devadeveshwar Sansthan, Pune, Bhasha Samman of Sahitya Academy, Delhi, and Mahamahopadhyay P.V. Kane Gold Medal of the Asiatic Society of Mumbai. So we are really delighted to have you with us, sir, for this valedictory address. Thank you again. And I request you to start your address.
Namo Namah. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Let me first thank the authorities of Dharma Center and the organizers of this conference on Ramayana. At the same time, I feel a little sorry because I had to miss this wonderful conference where there have been presentations on various topics connected to Ramayana. I had just gone through the schedule of the program, and I'm very pleased to see that scholars have dealt with a number of interesting topics. I feel rather diffident in this August gathering because I am not an authority on Ramayana. As you have already heard that I have worked on, particularly on Vedic studies, in Vedic studies, have dealt with some Buddhist tantric texts, and I am interested in Sanskrit literature in general. I have been teaching Sanskrit, Vedic and classical Sanskrit and Buddhist, classical Sanskrit and Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit. But since the organizers asked me to speak on Ramayana in this valedictory function, I decided to speak on a topic which is not much known to scholars. So I would speak on the Ramayana beyond boundaries. Already there have been some presentations on Ramayana outside India. I'm reminded of a famous saying of Saint Ramadas in Maharashtra, who said, Ramakatha Brahmanda Bheduna Palyadanyati. So Ramadas expressed his wish that we should take Ramayana beyond the boundaries of the universe. We already see that Ramayana has gone to a number of countries and it has been studied there. Some of those people, they sincerely believe that Ramayana took place in their country. So it is known that this epic Ramayana became popular in India and also beyond India in ancient period itself. Apart from Valmiki's Ramayana, as we have seen, there are a number of other Ramayanas in Sanskrit and other Indian languages. These Ramayanas are popular in those particular regions or countries even today. The stories of Rama occurring in these Ramayanas also have some variations. Even in Sanskrit, there are a number of Ramayanas where the story differs. But still, we don't find that it has caused any adverse effect on the popularity of Ramayana. With all these variations or differences, different ways of narrations, Ramayana is popular. And a number of times people do not really ask questions why it is like that. Of course, there is a difference between the perspectives of scholars who are very critical about Ramayana, the story itself and the narration itself, the statements in the Ramayana or various Ramayanas, and general people, connoisseurs and devotees of Rama belonging to different sects. In the present speech, I will not speak on these various Ramayanas, but I would limit myself to the discussion of the characteristics of Ramayana prevalent in 3 non-Indian languages, namely the Ramayana translated into Tibetan, Chinese, and Japanese. I must confess that I know a little Tibetan. I have working knowledge of Tibetan pertaining to my particular field of Buddhist tantric texts. I have no idea of Chinese, and I know a very little Japanese. So all my statements in this speech are based on secondary sources And I believe that these sources are good sources, reliable sources. Let us first come to the Tibetan Ramayana. There is a wonderful article by J.W. Dayong from Australia, who has written on the story of Rama in Tibet. The Ramayana in the Tibetan language was discovered in the beginning of previous century. There was a scholar, Sir Horace Stein, who did monumental work in Kashmir and other areas. He found some Tibetan manuscripts in the region of Tunhuang. The story of Ramayana occurs in these manuscripts, as well as in 6 other Tibetan manuscripts found by other researchers. Some manuscripts were found in Tunhuang, and they were originally written in central parts of Tibet, and later on they migrated to Tunhuang. While some of the manuscripts were written in Tunhuang itself. We do not find any reference to the time period during which these manuscripts were written. But these manuscripts could have been written when Tibet invaded China and took over the Tunhuang region in the 8th century CE. The people of the middle and northeastern Tibet might be knowing the story of Ram. Also, there is a dictionary, a well-known old dictionary, ancient dictionary called Mahavyutpatti. It's a Sanskrit Tibetan dictionary composed in the beginning of 9th century CE, where you get good vocabulary, a standard vocabulary, standard parallels of Sanskrit, general words and technical words, Buddhist technical terms. So in this Tibetan dictionary, Sanskrit Tibetan dictionary, Mahavyutpatti, we come across a reference to this story. But the name of this story is Sita Harana and not Ramayana. It appears that this story could be a mixture of prose and poetry. There are certain ways to find that. Because the Tibetan translators, they translated the metrical part in a particular way so that one can find the even original Sanskrit meter and the Sanskrit words. The Tibetan translations are very peculiar. They were done very systematically, and for which the translators adopted a particular method. All these translations were done jointly by 2 scholars. There were a Sanskrit scholar, Indian scholar, and a Tibetan translator called Lotsawa. And when they translated the text, they of course took the help of Mahavyutpatti and other sources that offered a standard Tibetan translation of a particular Sanskrit word. Sometimes the translators made a phonetic transcription of some of the words. Of course, that transcript was based on their pronunciation. This phenomenon of phonetic transcription can also be found in Chinese and Japanese language, in which the Indian words, Sanskrit words, migrated. As regards the story of Rama, we find that the word Sita is translated into a particular way. And in Tibetan, it means a girl found in a crack of a plowed land. That is the original word meaning of the word Sita. While in one of the Tibetan manuscripts, there occurs the word Ramana for the name Rama, and it was transliterated, written in the Tibetan script. Even the name Dasharatha occurs in its Tibetan transcript and is also translated. And the translation is one who has 10 chariots. Just a very correct translation of Dasharatha. I have mentioned the 6 manuscripts of the Tibetan translation of Ramayana. As I said, the story differs in its contents. In the manuscript found in Tunhuang, it has been said that Sita was the daughter of Ravana. A peculiar story about Sita's birth. So Sita was the daughter of Ravana. At the time of her birth, an astrologer made a prediction that Sita would be the cause of the destruction of Ravana and all other demons. Therefore, Sita was kept in a bronze trunk and was sailed in the water. She was found inside a trunk in a crack of a farmland and was found by a farmer who was watering the crops. The trunk came sailing in the water. This is the story of Sita. The description of Rama's story in all 6 Tibetan manuscripts is incomplete. But if the parts found in each manuscript would be joined together, it would be possible to reconstruct the entire story of Ramayana. And scholars have made this effort with considerable success. The original Sanskrit names of the characters of the story are found in a correct form, but they can be understood with a little effort. Some names, however, occur as they found in the original text. For example, as I said just now, Sita and Dasharatha. The name of Ravana is replaced with Dashagriva. And while his brothers, namely Kumbhakarna and Vibhishana and his sister Shurpanakha, their names are found in their corrupt forms. In this whole story, there is a mention of only 2 princes of Ayodhya out of 4. Sorry. That is Rama and Lakshmana. We know of the sacrifice Dasharatha arranged to obtain progeny. As we know, it is called Putra Kameshtiyat. But in the Tibetan story, we do not find a reference to this sacrifice. Instead, Dasharatha makes a prayer to 500 sages on the Kailasa mountain for obtaining a son. The sages do a favor and give a flower to Dasharatha instead of a porridge in Ramayana. Dasharatha gives that flower to his elder queen, and she gives its half part to the younger one. So there were 2 queens. The elder queen gives birth to Lakshmana. See, this is the difference. And the younger one to Ram. After the demise of Dasharatha, Lakshman, the elder one, desires to hand over the kingdom to Rama. But Rama refuses to take that responsibility. So instead of enjoying this power and taking the responsibility for the kingdom, Lakshmana places the shoes of Rama, Paduka, on the throne and takes care of the kingdom as a minister. There is a reference to the demon called Maricha in the form of a golden deer. But there is no reference to Lakshmana Rekha, a boundary set by Lakshmana around the hut to protect Sita. As we see that there is no Lakshmana Rekha, no reference to Lakshmana Rekha in some of the Ramayanas in India. The incidence of the abandonment of Sita is narrated. However, it is said that Lava and Kusha were born in the palace and not in the hermitage of sage Valmiki. Also, there is no reference to Sita's expiation, Divya, Prayaschitta, and so on. On the contrary, it is Hanumana who assures Rama of Sita's purity, saying that Sita is pure, and Rama honors his words and accepts Sita once again, along with the sons. So we find such differences in this Ramayana. This story has a happy end. So we can say that Rama and Sita lived happily thereafter, forever. Hanumana returns back to his kingdom and the story is over. Now one would ask the question, what is the source of some of the incidents in this story? There is a possibility that the prose and the poetic parts of this Tibetan version could be the translation of different stories that are found in Sanskrit and perhaps in the Pali languages. Mostly Tibetan translations are based on Sanskrit texts, but it is also possible that there would be other classical languages and the stories in those languages which are at the basis of these translations. We find the story in the Pali Jataka. The prose and poetic portions in the Pali narration have only one story. But the case of the Tibetan story is different. It appears that the narration of the story is done by different people at different places. So it is necessary to search the original Ramayana, the root text, which is the source of these translations. When we check the Tibetan translation with the Ramayana of Valmiki, we find that there is at least one verse from the Ramayana that appears to have been translated into Tibetan a very literal manner. This verse has a reference to Vali. In the episode of Vali's assassination, Sugriva had made a promise to Rama to help him find Sita. But it is said in the story that he was. And then Lakshmana makes Sugriva aware of his promise and says, I read out the Sanskrit verse from Valmiki's Ramayana and then give its translation. The Sanskrit verse says, Nasa sankuchata pantha yena vali hato gatah samaye tishta sugriva ma vali patha manvagah. After the death of Vali, the path on which he trod is not narrow. It's a broad path. O Sugriva, follow your promise and do not go to that path of Valmiki. Do not follow the path of Valmiki. If more studies carried out on the Tibetan translation of Ramayana, then it is possible that we find many more verses which had been translated there. Perhaps it can be said that Rama's story prevalent in the Tibetan cultures, and it is not the direct translation of Valmiki's Ramayana, but rather is a translation of a story based on that Ramayana, which can be called Ur Ramayana. And also some of the parts of Ramayana stories in other traditions were mixed in the Tibetan Ramayana. This Rama story can be said as a mixture of literary as well as folk stories on Rama. We know that there are various versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata in the Himalayan regions, and they are very much aware of these stories, but the versions could be different. Just I would like to make a passing reference that some of my friends from those regions, they have Buddhist names, but they also add the name of Rama. For example, one of my friends from Sarnath is called Thinle Ram Shashni. So Thinle is a Tibetan word, which is common to a number of dialects in the Himalayas, and Rama is added to it. We find two translations of Ramayana in Chinese and also one in the Khotanese language. The Buddhist influence is more prevalent on these Ramayanas rather than the Tibetan one. There is a sentence at the end of the Tibetan manuscript. It says, reverence to the Shakya Muni, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha. This statement in the colophon only represents the devotion of the Buddhist scribe who might have been copying that manuscript. The Chinese and Khotanese stories are written in the style of a Buddhist Jataka and in the prose format. Just like the Tibetan Ramayana, the Chinese Ramayana is also unknown to a greater extent. The reason behind it is that these languages are the least studied languages in India. On the contrary, Chinese scholars have praised Ramayana and Mahabharata on a very large scale. One of the researchers has noted that these epics not only are precious assets of India, but also have gained global importance. A short explanation of the time and the way of the arrival of the story in China can be given. There is a detailed commentary named Mahavibhasha on a treatise of Katyayani Putra. It is called Jnana Prasthana. According to the Buddhist tradition, this commentary was written in the reign of King Kanishka, that is approximately in the beginning of Christian era. A famous Chinese traveler named Xuanshang, sorry for my wrong pronunciation of the word, he translated this commentary into Chinese. In that translation, there is a reference to Ramayana. The commentary says, I quote, it's translated one, Ramayana consists of 1200 verses, and it contains only two stories. One part of the story is Ravana violently abducted Sita, and second, Rama came back to Ayodhya with Sita taking with him along. And after this statement, the commentator says, but our Buddhist texts are not ordinary. Their writing style and meanings, on the other hand, are uncountable and infinite. In this way, the Buddhist scholars made an account of Ramayana, and according to them, the Buddhist texts were superior to Ramayana. The reference to Ramayana and its impact in the Mahavibhasha commentary are the representatives of varied experimentations of Ramayana and also of the opinions about Ramayana the Buddhist people have in mind or prevalent in that particular time period. Except for this little reference, one cannot find any other special reference to Ramayana in this detailed commentary. It has 200 chapters. Another reference could be found in the Chinese biography of a Buddhist scholar named Vasubandhu. He belonged to the 5th century CE. And the reference is, I just quote the statement, translated into English. Now, he, that is Vasubandhu, will expound the philosophy of a commentary named Vibhasha in the assembly of scholars, and he will also critically discuss the story of Ramayana. Another reference found in the Chinese translation of that biography can also be given. A certain person, maybe a monk, instead of reciting Buddhist aphorisms, sutras, recited by mistake the Ramayana. There is a reference to the public recitation of Ramayana in a Buddhist text called Kalpana Manditika. In a verse in the Buddha Charita, composed by famous poet Ashwaghosha, there is a reference to Valmiki, the author of the epic Ramayana. We know all this. The Chinese translation of this epic was done in the 5th century CE. So it can be said that Ramayana was introduced to Chinese scholars around the 5th century CE. One can find the story of Rama in some Jatakas in the Pali language, especially in the Dasharatha Jataka, the Vesantara Jataka, and in the Shambhuka Jataka. However, the story has a certain variations from that narrated in Valmiki's Ramayana. Rama in the Buddhist story is the Bodhisattva. The story has undergone some changes, probably for the propagation of Buddhist ethics and values. There is much similarity between the style of the description and poetry sections of Vesantara Jataka and the Ayodhya Kanda of Valmiki's Ramayana. While there are some other peculiar differences at some points as well. In the Dasharatha Jataka, Sita is said to be the daughter of Dasharatha. The Ramayana stories in local traditions might be different. Though their reflections could be seen in some of the Ramayanas of some traditions, it can be seen that these have not gained much importance. The story in Valmiki's Ramayana itself got recognition. Ramayana reached China in the form of the Chinese translations of the Jatakas. The names of the characters in the Ur Ramayana seem to be different from those in the Chinese translations. Also, the place names got replaced with places from China like Yunnan, etc. This Ramayana cannot be said to be the replica of Valmiki's Ramayana. After the 9th century CE, the Ramayana reached China again through Thailand and Myanmar. Travel to China from Assam via Myanmar or Burma or Yunnan, it is also possible. The Ramayana story has been inserted into the local traditions of people belonging to Thai sect of Yunnan. So there is a story, in that story there is a reference, there is a famous character, namely Sun Wukong, who is the king of monkey. This can be, so it can be stated that this is a Chinese version of Hanuman. The first Chinese translation of Valmiki's Ramayana was done in the recent period, that is 1950. The second translation was done in 1962, but it was done with reference to the English translation. And Professor Shrikant Bahulkar did the translation of Valmiki's Ramayana with ceaseless efforts of about 10 years. That translation was published in 1984, and it consisted of 10 volumes. Afterwards, many Chinese scholars, after studying Ramayana thoroughly, made a great contribution to its research field. Indian government felicitated Professor Shrikant Bahulkar with the prestigious Padma Bhushan Award for his valuable contribution to the field of Indian studies. Now we come to the Ramayana in Japan. It was introduced in Japan in the form of a story of Rama and Ramayana's reference in the Buddhist tradition. Ramayana is known by the name Ramayana or Ramayana show in Japanese. It is quite strange that in this story, the character of Hanuman is absent. In the 12th century CE, Tairano Yasuyori prepared a collection of folk tales called Hobutsushu. One of these stories is surely based on Valmiki's Ramayana with certain deviations. The protagonist of that story is Tathagata Shakya Muni, who was the emperor of a larger kingdom. There was a neighboring kingdom called Kyushi. When the people in that neighboring kingdom started starving and dying due to famine, and finally decided to attack this kingdom and take away all the grains. The people belonging to the kingdom of Shakyamuni also decided to face this battle. But Shakyamuni was against the war because he thought it would result in the loss of lives from both sides. He therefore left the kingdom and started living in the forest. So we find some similarity of this story with the story of Siddhartha Gautama. So he started practicing Buddhist principles. His wife also, with the firm determination, joined him in the forest stay. This part of story is similar to that part of early life of Siddhartha Gautama with certain variations. Further incidences are very much similar to those of Valmiki's Ramayana. So it is possible to say that this story is modified and it is found in a rather non-violent form. The second story that occurs in the collection, called Sambo Eko Tobo Toba, written by Minamoto no Tomonori. This story is a Japanese version of the story of Shravana occurring in the second kanda of Valmiki's Ramayana. The basis of this story lies in the Sama Jataka in the Pali language and Shamaka Jataka in the Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit work called Mahavastu. But the climax of this story in the Buddhist tradition has a very happy ending. Shravana in this story regains his life due to the strength of his truthfulness. This is called Satyakriya or in Pali and Satyakriya in Sanskrit. And this idea, the concept of Satyakriya, is very ancient, which is also found in the Vedas. The purpose of this story is to propagate Buddhist moral values. In a story named Swa Engi no Koto, composed in the 14th century CE, the younger son and also the protagonist, Koga Saburo Yorikata, is sent in exile by his other brothers. It is said that this is one of the versions of Ramayana. In other story called Bonten Koku, the protagonist Tamawaka, that is Rama, is a flute player. King Baramona, that is Ravana, puts Tamawaka's wife Himegimi in prison. While Tamawaka manages to free her when Baramona had gone away for hunting. Here there is no chance of war at all between Rama and Ravana. And we miss this great war. In Sanskrit is said, Rama Ravana yor yuddham, Rama Ravana yor yugo. But this depiction, narration of war is totally absent in this story. This and other Japanese stories like, for example, Kifune no Honji, Onzoshi Shimawatari, Bukiguna, etc., exhibit similarities with the Ramayana. Still, all these stories are different in some or other manner from the Ramayana of Valmiki. These stories belonging to the Buddhist tradition were translated into Chinese language in ancient and medieval period. And with these translations, Ramayana was introduced to the Japanese people. The journey of Ramayana did not directly start in India and end in Japan, but Ramayana went there via China through Buddhism. The translation of Buddhist Tripitaka into Chinese language is known as Taisho Tripitaka. Japanese scholars studied the short versions of Ramayana that are found in this Tripitaka. Dr. Raghuveer and Professor Shikyo Yamamoto published a book many years ago in 1955. The title is Ramayana in China. Later, Yutaka Iwamoto partly translated Valmiki's Ramayana in Japanese and published it in 2 volumes. The volumes were published in 1980 and 1984. In recent years, that is in 2012 and 13, Ryosho Nakamura published Ramayana's translation in 7 volumes. Apart from these 3 countries, Ramayana in the ancient period itself reached almost all Asian countries like Nepal, Mongolia, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Laos, Philippines, Indonesia, and so on. In modern times, scholars belonging to their particular countries studied and also translated Ramayana in their respective languages. A few years ago, an exhibition based on the Ramayana was organized for a year in the Peranakan Museum of Singapore. The theme of the exhibition was Ramayana Revisited, a tale of love and adventure. Approximately 30 years ago, the then honorary secretary of the Bhandarkar Orient Research Institute and a prominent scholar of Orient studies, Dr. R.N. Dandekar, announced that the institute would be undertaking a research project on Ramayana in Asia. But due to many unforeseen reasons, that project did not materialize. The study of Ramayana has gained international importance. Indian as well as foreign scholars have contributed in the research work related to it. There is still a much wider scope for further research on this subject. And as I mentioned, it is possible to take a project or a rather joint project on the study of Ramayana in Asia. And I think this conference would be a good step in that direction. And I hope that the scholars present in this wonderful conference and the scholars and listeners in the audience would take more interest in the study of Ramayana and deal with a number of interesting topics in future. I thank you, all of you, for patient hearing. I also thank the authorities, the organizers of the conference. I thank you all for bearing with me. As I confessed in the beginning, I am not a scholar of Ramayana. I have not studied these Ramayanas in these languages, Tibetan, Chinese, and Japanese. But I have tried my best to speak a few words on these various translations, and Ramayana that migrate to these regions. Thank you very much. Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this insightful talk, sir.
you very much.
It
My
was
pleasure.
yet another reflection on the the journey of the Ramakatha through the primarily Buddhist traditions. And thank you so much for bringing up this area which was not explored much in last 2 days. So thanks a lot for this whole talk. Now, as we are heading closer to the end of the conference, before we formally end, I would like to request a few representatives to come over here and express their views. I first invite Dr. Shri Krishna Kakade, who is the professor at the Marathi department at the Shankarlal Khandelwal College, Akola, Maharashtra. Dr. Kakade is one of the speakers, and he will be speaking over here as the representative of the speakers participating in the conference.
सभी को नमस्कार। रिफ्लेक्शन ऑन द रामायणा इस अंतरराष्ट्रीय चर्चा सत्र के समापन सत्र पर हमारे बीच उपस्थित हमारे चर्चा सत्र की बीज भाषक आदरणीय मौली कौशल मैम, हमारे बीच उपस्थित हमारी दूसरी मार्गदर्शिका आदरणीय सुप्रिया राय जी, देश के विभिन्न हिस्सों से विदेश से भी जुड़े सभी अध्येतागण, विद्यार्थी मित्रों, यह जो चर्चा सत्र 3 दिनों में आयोजित किया गया, यह कई मायनों में अलग था। इसमें कई बिंदु थे। यहाँ पे चर्चा हुई, यहाँ पे लाइव शो दिखाए गए, बाद में पपेट जैसे जो कला है कि जिसमें हम देखना चाहते थे कि रामायण कैसा है, उसके चित्र कैसे है, उसकी कड़सूत्री बाहुल्य मराठी में कहा जाता है, वह कैसी है। बाद में इसका संबंध नाट्य से भी जोड़ा गया। पहले दिन हमारे थिएटर में जो शो हुआ, वहां पे जो प्रसाद भिड़े थे और उनके साथ अनन्या थी, उन्होंने जो गायन किया, उन्होंने जो प्रस्तुति दी, वह कई मायनों में अलग थी। आमतौर पर चर्चा सत्रों में ऐसी चीजें नहीं की जाती, लेकिन आयोजक का दृष्टिकोण ऐसा रहा कि उन्होंने हमें सभी तरह की मेजबानी देने का प्रयास किया। सबसे पहले महत्वपूर्ण बात तो मैं इस संस्था के जो ट्रस्टी है आदरणीय समीर जी, उनके प्रति व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं। कोई भी, अब मानो बंबई शहर है, कितने बड़े बड़े लोग हैं, मलबार हिल में उनका बंगला है, वो यहाँ पे आए, उन्होंने सभी पार्टिसिपेंट लोगों को उनके बंगले पे बुलाया, वहां पे मुझे पूरा स्वागत किया, उनका घर दिखाया, घर का हर हिस्सा दिखाया और इतना स्वादिष्ट पूर्ण खाना हमें खिलाया कि हम वो जिंदगी भर याद रखना चाहते हैं। क्योंकि उसमें जो चीजें बनी थी, वो मैम ने जो चीजें बनाई थी, वो मुझे तो लगता है कि हम में से कई लोगों ने पहली बार खाई होगी, क्योंकि उसमें जो प्रेम का स्वाद था वह अलग ही कहानी बयां कर रहा था। हमारे यहाँ पे कई विद्वज्जन आए, उन्होंने हमसे बात की। गौरी माहुलीकर मैम थी, डॉक्टर कुमार थे, चिरापत जी आए, रूपांजलि जी आई, प्राचार्य विनया सानेकर जी हमारे बीच थी, डॉक्टर अजीज थे, डॉक्टर शंकरजीत डे थे। ऐसे सभी मान्यवरों का उद्बोधन अत्यंत प्रेरणादायी रहा। मैं हमारे कोंकण से आए जो कलाकार यहाँ पे पधारे, उनका भी विशेष तौर पर धन्यवाद व्यक्त करना चाहता हूँ कि उन्होंने हमें उनकी कला कल लाइव हमारे सामने दिखाई। आज उनसे चर्चा जब हुई तो वो बोल रहे थे कि हमारे 2 चित्र घर पे छूट गए थे। उन्होंने गणपति और वो जो हंस पर बैठकर सरस्वती आई थी, उसके चित्र उन्होंने यहाँ ही बनाए। ऐसे कलाकार हमारे बीच लाने का सौभाग्य आप सभी ने हमें दिया। धर्म, संस्कृति, पौराणिक आख्यानों के प्रति मुंबईकरों का जो नजरिया है वह हमें इन 3 दिनों में देखने को मिला। मुझे ऐसा लगता था कि आज तक मुंबई हम सिर्फ चकाचौंध की दुनिया नजरों से देखते थे कि यहाँ ऐसा है, वहाँ ऐसा है। यहाँ धर्म संस्कृति के बारे में कुछ होता होगा या नहीं, यह भी हमारे मन में शंका थी। लेकिन के प्रति, भाषा के प्रति इतने सजग नागरिक है 3 दिनों में। और एक महत्वपूर्ण बात हमें यह भी पता चली कि यहाँ जो लोग आए वो दिन भर बैठे रहे, कोई बीच में आता नहीं था, कोई बीच में जाता नहीं था। सिर्फ जो डेलीगेट्स थे वही जाते आते थे, बाकी सब पूरी तन्मयता से सभी भाषण सुन रहे थे। यह भी आपके मुंबईकरों के रसिकता को मैं प्रणाम करना चाहूंगा। हमारे बीच पहले दिन से हमें यह अद्भुत अनुभव आते गए। मेरे लिए तो मेरी ट्रेन पहुंची 5:30 बजे और मुझे लेने जो व्यक्ति आए थे वो 4:30 बजे ही वहां पे खड़े थे। यानी मुझसे ज्यादा चिंता उनको चिंता थी। ऐसे सभी आयोजक, प्राची पाठक मैम, उनके सभी साथी, सभी ने पूरा सहयोग हमें प्रदान किया। भविष्य में हम सब आपस में जुड़े रहेंगे और भी संस्कृति के प्रति बातें होती रहेगी। रामायण की यह जो श्रृंखला यहाँ से चल पड़ी है, यह अलग संदेश पूरे देश में देती रहेगी, ऐसे मुझे लगता है और मैं यह आशा भी व्यक्त करता हूँ। आप सभी का धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, sir. It was really heartening to listen to you. I request one more speaker over here, Dr. Durjati Sharma, who is the Assistant Professor, Comparative Indian Literature, Department of Modern Indian Languages and Literary Studies, Guwahati University, Assam.
Thank you, ma'am. So honored members of the audience and a very excellent team of organizers here led by Dr. Supriya Rai, ma'am. It's my pleasure to be here sharing my experiences over the last 3 days of talking, discussing, introspecting, speculating on various aspects of the Ramayana. So as it turned out, at the end of the day, you know, it's not just reflections on the Ramayana, but other reflections on the Ramayanas that we are taking back with us. So it was, I know, organizing a seminar on Ramayana or Mahabharata, as Professor Molly ma'am would very appropriately attest, it's a challenge, because there is always a danger of being very monolithic or monogenetic in our approach. Because talking about Ramayana and Mahabharata, apparently we're all talking about the same thing. It's not like a seminar on any other topic where we bring something new on the table. Apparently we are not bringing, to be very frank, we are not talking about anything new. We're talking about the same story. I mean, we're talking about the same characters, similar incidents. So what was new about this conference, or what is new about our engagement with the epics? It's the way we interpret, it's the way we reflect. So the word reflection here is essential because tradition, or rather the Indian tradition, is primarily reflective. It's that impetus it provides towards thinking, rethinking, and interrogating certain accepted ideas and trying to rework them as far as our own thinking permits. Reworking ideas according to our own worldview. And I think this is what has happened in this conference. And I'm reminded of that tale which is mentioned in A.K. Ramanujan's essay 300 Ramayanas, but Hanuman going to the netherworld to pick up the Rama's ring, and he sort of encounters 300 rings, and is asked to pick up one of them. So something similar has happened here. We all have come from different parts of the country. All of us have brought our own rings with us, and we have placed all of them here. It's difficult to pick which ring belongs to whom. At the end of the day, all of us have come together with our own vision of the Ram Katha, with our own vision of the stories. And the stories here, and what is very particular about this engagement, that this engagement is multimedial. It's not just about orality. It's not just about performance. It's not just about just a text. It's not a very confrontational, it's something that coexisting, cohabiting. So talking about the Ramayana, talking about the Mahabharata is something which enables us to inculcate the spirit of cohabitation, acceptance, tolerance. This is something that the epics teach us. Rather than, I'm not moralizing here, I'm trying to draw attention to the practical aspects of the epic, to the epics which have been sustained throughout the centuries. And maybe this is something that the institute can possibly do, and as it is continuing its studies on the Ramayana, maybe focus on certain specific aspects of Ramayana, the legal aspects, the legal Dharma, because Dharma could also be understood in a legal sense, the sociological aspects. So maybe that would bring forth further in-depth discussions on the issues which impinge on the Ramakathas. So this much on the seminar. And as far as the organizational aspect of the seminar was concerned, it was really fascinating, because right from the very first day, after, with all your team, they have been phenomenal in the way they've responded. I know this seminar had to be rescheduled, but they were absolutely fascinating in following up with us. And at times I felt that I'm the only one who's coming for the seminar, because they were so particular about asking for our detail. I felt as if, and I was wondering that, how come, they are taking particular care of each and every participant. And I must salute, must congratulate each and every member of the organizing team for so meticulously, diligently, and so religiously taking care of all of us for not only for the last 3 days, but for the last, I guess, 2 or 3 months. You have been following up with everything, finalizing every minute details of, pertaining to the conference. So this was absolutely mind-blowing, and I was anticipating something that, and I am happy to be proved right to the fullest. And obviously, Kakreji has talked about the hospitality. Yes, this has been fascinating, and we have never been invited to a chancellor's place before. So this is the first time we have been invited, and I'm really humbled by his hospitality, by his goodwill and his encouragement to each one of us. So this was really fascinating. So my sincere thanks go to him. And also to the different paper presenters who we have been in conversation for the last 3 days, the performers, and the performance that happened on the very first day. And that placement of that particular performance was highly strategic, because it actually it actually exhibited the fact that the engagement is not only textual, that the engagement is actually multidisciplinary. So we are not only dealing with the text, and this was a very strategic thing on the part of the organizers to sensitize us towards this facet of, of the studies pertaining to the epics. So, and apart from that, the performances, the movie screenings, And the discussion which have followed during the coffee breaks have been truly amazing. I only hope that we get similar invitations in the future. Possibly we should all keep talking, keep discussing, and I hope nobody exits from the WhatsApp group. We keep discussing, talking about Ramayana's various aspects of the Ramayana, and maybe there is another occasion in the future to have another meeting of this sort, talking about Ramayana, and possibly we'd also be having another seminar on the Mahabharata, and maybe then on the Puranas. I hope this dialogue continues. So my sincere thanks to each and everyone who have been associated with this program, and my humble sense of gratitude to everyone, right from the person who picked me up from the airport. So thanks to him as well. And thanks to everyone who have been associated both directly and indirectly with this endeavor. With these words, I'd like to conclude my brief speech. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Sorry if I've missed out anyone, so thanks to them as well.
Thank you so much, Durjati sir. And this was really the objective behind organizing this conference, that we wanted to bring together various dimensions related to Ram Katha. And I hope that something very fruitful emerges out of this conference where we all have gathered together. And if Molly Madam connects us with few more good scholars, we are hopeful of conducting another conference on Mahabharata also. So because Molly Madam had really been behind us for many of these connections. Yeah. So now I request two of our student representatives to express their views, how they felt about the conference, how did they like it. I first invite Ms. Maithili Kulkarni, who is the student of first year ME Sanskrit.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Actually, I'm too young to talk about Ramayana or give review on this wonderful conference in front of all the scholars. But I sincerely thank all the organizers and our teachers to organizing this conference. Actually, frankly speaking, before 2nd of February, I was unaware of all the different versions of Ramayana other than Valmiki Ramayana. But at this moment, I'm going home with so many insights and whole bucket of knowledge collected from different states, countries, tribal communities. And this conference gave us new perspective to look at Ramayana, not only as Arsha Mahakavya, but also a great composition which has influenced India's different states, tribal areas, and the literature beyond overseas. Different versions of Ramayana, like tribal versions, Ravanayana of Govt's community, Karbi version gave us a different angle to look, to study this epic. Thai Ramakian, Muslim Jain version, Chinese version, and versions from Assam, Manipur, and Cambodian version made us realize how a story travels through different areas with different alterations, additions in it, and gets adapted as their own version. It was really interesting to know these stories. Papers on the paintings of Ramayana, based on Ramayana, gave us a visual treat to actually understand how the painter is trying to tell a story. Not only the research papers, but also the drama from Bhasa era, Pratima, and exhibition representing folk culture based on Ramayana, a performance from Thakar community from Kudal, and documentaries on tradition, Ravana Chaya tradition and Northeast tradition gave us idea about how deeply has Ramayana reflected on the performing arts as well. I'm really lucky to be present here and attend this conference and gather a gallon of information at the end of this conference. I'm sure this conference has inspired all the students present here to read more, research more, and work on Ramayana. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maithili. I request one more student, Miss Vaishnavi Joshi, who is the student of first year MA Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology.
Namaskar. I think as Maithili said, we are too young to comment much on this, and she took most of my points. So I'll keep it even more short. Firstly, we have to a heartfelt gratitude towards the organizing committee for giving us this opportunity for a great conference like this. So usually we have this notion, right? Ki Ramayana is a Hindu epic, which everyone knows. But this conference has completely dispelled that notion for me. It is not just limited to a certain community. It is a kavya of the subcontinent, which has spread so wide that every community has imbibed it in their own culture, with their own traditions. And that is what we got to see today. And usually when our teachers set us any assignments, we refrain from taking Ramayana Mahabharata because we are like, it's same old, and it's so religious. We don't want to take it. We'll find something unique, something else. But now we know ki even in the same old, there is a lot of lot of scope of finding something unique, something various, some variations. Like after this conference, I still feel that there are so many aspects left to explore, which young students like us can look into. So thanking once again all the wonderful films and performances, and ending it with that we will really look forward to the next edition. Maybe one day we will not be here just giving a comment. Maybe we will be presenting our own paper. So really, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vaishnavi. I think what our students were trying to convey, that is the success of all this endeavor. So the conference has sown the seeds of curiosity in our mind, and the journey of exploring this Ramakatha has just begun. So even though the conference is ending, our journey is just starting. Now I request our director, Dr. Supriya Rai, to propose the vote of thanks.
Happy, sad. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Really. A bit of formality. Yeah. So as head of the institution, it is my privilege to propose this vote of thanks. And I would like to begin by, of course, thanking the Honorable Minister who came to inaugurate the session. And he really didn't have time actually, but he was very keen. And he managed to squeeze in that 1 hour. And afterwards, he messaged me to say he wants the Zoom link, because he said he would try and attend some of the sessions. I don't know if he logged in. We will have to check. But then he's also said that when we upload this, he would like to view the videos. So that is actually, there has been a lot of support. And as he expressed in his speech also, you need to leave. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I'm coming to you. So there has been a lot of support to our institution. When I say our institution now, I mean Somaiya Vidya Vihar, in the fact that we were also given this private university status, which gives us a lot of freedom in our, developing curriculum, in which we are doing a lot. Actually, it'll come to fruition. Maybe it'll take a couple of years or more, but there are many things that are happening in our institution, which are really thanks to the kind of support we have got from the government. And of course, like Mr. Kakade said, and Durjati said, our Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, extremely supportive of our institution. It is quite rare actually to have a whole institution which is dedicated to religious and philosophical studies. And as I mentioned, we were 3 separate institutions before, and we teach Sanskrit, Hindu studies. Yoga Shastra is a very big program. We are in the field of Pali and Buddhist studies. We are the only ones teaching Tibetan, and of course, Jainology and Prakrit. And to run academic programs in these disciplines is quite a challenge. And the institutions have been, there is unstinting support for research as well as for teaching faculty over here, for which I'm very grateful to Mr. Somaiya and to our Vice Chancellor. He always, both of them are actually men of science, but a deep love of culture. I would next like to, of course, thank our collaborators, without whom we would not have had, we would not have been able to organize it in the way that we did. And first and foremost, the Central Sanskrit University. Professor Varkhedi was going to be our chief guest. He is the Vice Chancellor of Central Sanskrit University. Unfortunately, last minute, something unavoidable came up. But then he did join in a kind of a, in a talk, which we couldn't see him, but he was here with us in spirit. And Professor Lakshmi Nivas Pandey, Professor Jha, Dr. Kumar, who are from the Mumbai campus of Central Sanskrit University, coordinated with us throughout, from the beginning, from the planning to the execution, and their support has been enormous. So our thanks to all members, staff and students from Central Sanskrit University. Ayodhya Research Institute, to whom Molly ma'am introduced us, and Dr. Lavkush Trivedi. Dr. Trivedi stood by us through some ups and downs that we had in the planning. As you can imagine, when we organize something, sometimes things that are planned last minute, just everything goes turtle. And Dr. Trivedi helped us out immensely in that process. And he's a very busy man, but he did make a flying visit to attend the inaugural session. And he's been on WhatsApp with us saying, what all we can do. So a big thank you to him. I will message him separately, and I hope he gets to see the video recording before Amey stops it again. And of course, the final collaborator, our very own Dr. Veena Sanikar and the KJ Somaiya College of Arts and Commerce. She's the head of the institution, and Dr. Prasad Bhide and his team who performed, they are also faculty from her institution. And her collaboration has meant a lot. And she had just finished, actually, in the whole month of January, we have what is called a Gyan Yagna, and there are early morning programs. This year we extended them to evening programs. She's just about recovering from it, and still she has joined us here. I'm very, very thankful to you, ma'am, for being with us, for chairing sessions, and for the financial support your college has extended. And of course, Prasad Bhide and his team for the stupendous performance of Pratima. In fact, in organizing this conference, for us also, it was a new we charted a new course. We had never done this kind of thing before. And for that, and for so many other things, I have to thank Professor Molly Kaushal. Because, no, really, she has been the spirit design, behind the very design of this whole conference. And she's the one who helped helped us locate all our wonderful scholars from this morning's sessions in the Northeast, because we were, like I said, we were trying to find contacts, email IDs. It was very difficult. And one day we just said, no, we have to go to her. And that was also, it was a meeting of old souls, because we had never met before. But the conversations on the phone, I can promise you, in Professor Kaushal, we have a person with a heart that is so big, it includes everyone. And she just was there. She was moving out of IGNCA to a new position, and Prachi just hounded her morning, noon, and night for so many things. And she's made calls to us late in the night to help us out when, things were not going so well. So really, Professor Kaushal, in the idea that you gave us for the exhibition, from there arose these thoughts that we must have, I have no word for it, maybe like an experiential, aspect of the Ramayana that we are talking about. And I have to tell all of you that our Chancellor, Somaiya, said it was a brilliant idea, because he said, otherwise tum log bas speech karte rehte ho, and there is no end to that. So the theater performances, the film shows, Mr. Bappa Ray, where is Mr. Shankarji Dey is left already, yeah. And Mr. Aziz has a film too, which he has promised to screen with us again for our students. The performers, they added a lively dimension to this. And because it is a lived tradition, I think it was very special to have all of these aspects, for which really I have to thank you. And also the scholars who presented on the visual representations of the Ramayana. We did our very best. We got some feedback that we've left this part out or that part out, and we really could not include everything because it's just too massive. The things that we really wanted to include were the folk and the Northeast, and that happened. And I think we did a good job with that. And for that, Professor Kaushal, thank you very, very much. No, really. No, it was your support. We wouldn't have been able to do it at all without you. And so to all the delegates here, to everyone who came, who presented, and who, we had this problem of the dates changing. We had several other issues also, for bearing with us. On the first day, our camera developed a mind of its own and started swinging from side to side. And our online audience must have been driven dizzy by the whole thing. Thank you for bearing with us. We don't know why it happened. It's got AI in it. So, but for sorting all of that out, young Ameya here and Mr. Milind Khedekar, they really worked hard that night to sort it all out. And thank you, Ameya, and please convey our thanks to Milind sir and to the whole IT team. Yeah. And then I have to thank, of course, so many more people without whom we wouldn't have been here at all. First of all, this building is the building of the Management Institute, the KG Somaiya Institute of Management. So the head of that, Dr. Raman Ramakrishnan, and his administrative staff, who ensured that we seamlessly made the transitions from here to another location to back. I promise you, in using another facility, we have to make sure we are not treading on their toes, that their programs they function very well. So they worked very hard with us. A big thank you to them, especially to Minal Bhutak and to Mr. Harish. To our PR team, Mr. Pushpendra Dhansoya, and the agency which designed some of this material that we have put in our folders, Sean and Soham, and people with whom Prachi has been coordinating. They suffered all of the changes that we kept making last minute and worked long hours to deliver all of the printed materials in time, for which again we have to thank Jay and Perfect Communications. A big thank you to him, because he is like our rock anchor, sheet anchor. All of the posters, the banners, everything that we had printed in time is thanks to Jay. I have to thank Ms. Babita Krishnan. She couldn't be here. She administers our campus and she is another support that we had. We have a lot of arrangements which we need to make for people to move in and out. We have security, we have this, we have that. All of that happened, I think, without a glitch, and that is thanks to Babita Krishnan. And at the hostel, the team of Shriya Pawar and all of the staff there who ensured your rooms were open. And I hope everything worked in the room. And thanks to them. Thanks to Mr. Suresh Mehra and where is Aditya Shastri here, who has recorded these memories for us. And so we will have them for keeps. Thank you very much. We have Cosmos, who is our catering department, who made sure we had healthy, but hopefully, I think everyone enjoyed the food. It's quite delicious. Yeah, so we have Cosmos to thank for, and Jinal Studios for the sound and everything upstairs. Now it comes to those who are our very own. I would like to thank our student volunteers. They did a lot. They did a lot through all of the last week. They stood with us and things came late and they packed the folders and they put up the pictures and they didn't complain and they were happy just with the samosas that we kept feeding them. So wonderful students, thank you so much. I mean, it was a joy, absolutely. Yeah. Then our non-teaching staff, some of you may have met them, some of you may not have seen them. Our non-teaching staff are our silent back-end support. Without them, we are nothing. We stand tall on the kind of support that they give us on all fronts. And I promise you, I'm the most difficult person here in this institution and they deal with me. So it's a lot. And I'm really, yeah, see, everyone agrees. Yeah, so I'm really grateful to our staff for everything that they have done in these last few weeks. And then comes our own Prachi. Prachi, please come. So Prachi has been here from the beginning when we conceived of this, when we conceived of this conference, and she's sort of on her frail shoulders. She has held this whole thing together. Every single aspect of it, I made sure that she, had the reins in her hand and she held them. And all of you who said that y'all were looked after, if y'all felt y'all were the only person, it's thanks to Prachi. She really worked hard. It was her idea to create the WhatsApp group and to get everybody into a conversation. And she knew everything. At any point in time, if I needed any update on anything, Prachi was there. Even when she was on vacation, she took calls. So thanks very much, and a big hand to Prachi, who was ably then Bhagyashri. There is Bhagyashri. That is Bhagyashri. Bhagyashri supported her through it all. And the other members of the committee, I would just like to call Pallavi Zambare, Rudraksha Sakrikar, Bala Saheb Bag. This is our organizing committee, without whom this conference really, please, one photo. Ek photo banti hai, come on. And so from all of us, a very big thank you to all of you who came, who shared with us so warmly. And I think the joy of this conference has been that the conversations that we wanted to, for this whole thing to start off, they have started, and we hope that they will continue. I hope you will all remain connected with us in all of the ways that are possible. Big dhanyavad. And to finally sum it all up, what I learned from Jain sir, how we say it in the Jain tradition, knowingly or unknowingly, agar hamare se kuch galti hogi, please forgive us. Michhami dukadam. Thank you.